Hello.
Hello.
How's everybody? Hi, Mary. Hi. Are you
Hi.
fine?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi. Mary.
I was just trying to check my very last email. It's like, she sent something else.
No, don't. Yeah, nothing that you have to read tonight.
Okay. It's like, I still can't do two things on my computer at once.
Neither can I.
So I'm learning, but not there yet.
No. Well, I'm waiting to see if I have COVID.
Oh, no.
That's what I was gonna say. What's new here?
My daughter has COVID, who lives with
Oh.
us.
Oh dear.
Just discovered today. So, no rest.
Like, was she hanging out with the president or something?
No, she went to a super spreader baby shower.
Oh. Yeah, I'm still being careful about where I go, but
Yeah. But that only works as long as your loved ones are also being careful. You know,
yes.
it's only as strong, the chain is only as strong as the weakest link.
Well, I'm lucky. My son Jonathan, he's got the two little kids, so he's really careful about what they do.
Yeah.
So he doesn't expect, the youngest is only 2, so she hasn't been vaccinated.
Right.
So they're very careful about, knock on wood, what they do.
It's crazy. My son got COVID in June and he quarantined in their house and neither his wife nor his son got it, which is just phenomenally bizarre to me. But like, he didn't come out of this room for a week, except for to go to the bathroom, and he used a different bathroom. I mean, they were like leaving food and then running away from the door. Like being,
Well, it does work if you're careful. That's what that shows. It's like, but you're right. Not everybody is as careful. I have to watch my little 92-year-old neighbor here, who ended up in the hospital with dehydration in those 2 real humid days. It's like, so of course, the first thing they do is test for COVID. It's like,
right.
no, that's not what it's, it's like,
People need to drink
not what
water.
it's not what he's doing.
Drink water. Yeah.
And it's still,
Well, my son got COVID going to a wedding. And being a nurse working in a hospital on COVID units never gave him COVID. He never got COVID from actually taking care of people, being around people with COVID. It was when he went to a wedding and.
yeah, it's when you go and you don't think about it and you let your
That's
guard
right.
down, because
Right.
you don't really know who's with you that's been exposed.
And they
Yeah.
don't know. And sometimes they don't know. All right. Well, we need to get some more people here so we can get this meeting going.
I know, where is everybody?
Oh, I hope they haven't forgotten.
There's Robin.
All right. Let's see if I can text people. How do I do this? That. Scott. All right. Well, Beth, you're here. I just texted you. Never mind. Hi.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, well, we can, we got one more minute and then we can call the meeting. Let me pull up my agenda. All right. So 7 o'clock is gonna be an RDA, and I don't see the applicant. That's not good. Carrie, do you want to rename yourself? I'm going to rename you. I can't rename you. Is that Carrie, meeting host? Oh, good. Carrie, can you make me a co-host?
What's just happened?
All right,
Here comes that applicant right now.
great. Okay. All right, well, we will call the meeting for 7 o'clock. And wait for Jeremy to join us. Hi, Jeremy. I don't know if you can unmute yourself. You
I
wanna-
can, I'm here. Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
Okay. So you are first on our agenda. So this is a request of determination of applicability at 176 West Pelham Road, where the landowner wants to build an addition and move a shed, I think, is part of it. And the addition is a
Yeah, there was a,
mudroom deck.
there was a kind of lean-to shed addition on the front of our house a number of years back before we bought it. And we want to move to the side in order to then create a mudroom deck.
Guys, I'm hearing some background noise, so except if you're not talking, if you could mute yourselves.
Yep, that's me.
Okay, Jeremy, go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you. I just couldn't hear. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I'm in a public space. It's the best. Yeah, so we're basically, there's a lean-to shed on the front of our house that we want to move over to the side and then build a entry room and porch deck on the side of that.
Okay. And we did a site visit and found 2 intermittent streams. One of them is about roughly 84 feet from the property, the project area. There's another on the other side of the house. There's another intermittent stream that, I'm sorry. Sorry, the phone is. Fundraisers are calling me. So annoying. So the other wetland goes under a culvert on their driveway and is possibly just under 100 feet, depending on where the boundary of the BVW is. Robin was with me and we looked and found some sensitive fern that was closer to the house, suggesting that the edge of it is, that would put the project area into buffer zone. But it's clearly in buffer zone from the other side, from the other wetland. So that's where the nexus is of our jurisdiction. And do you just want to give us like a little thumbnail sketch, Jeremy, of what you're gonna do, like how you're gonna do it?
Yeah, so basically, the idea that we have right now is to do kind of minimal disturbance of any soil. The space that we're doing has been, like I said, there was a structure there that we're moving, and the rest was garden space or it was Goshen stone like pathway. That's what we're building kind of on top of. It comes out about 8 feet from the house, and I think we're going to be using diamond. Sorry, I think we're going to be using diamond piers, which are these metal posts that have four pins that you drive into the ground. So there won't really be any excavation outside of just drilling those pins down into the ground. That's what we're going to be using. So there really will be pretty minimal disturbance of the soil. The dumpster that you see on this this drawing that Miriam is projecting right now, there was a dumpster here that's already been filled with the demolition and removed and ran a magnet over it. So really, there's not going to be any stockpiling of dirt or materials. Basically, there's just going to be the building of the structure on those piers. So yeah, I mean, we're taking a flat space that has been garden and structure and stone patio and just building a deck above it, basically, part of it with a roof, part of it without.
And where are you thinking you would put erosion controls, Jeremy?
So, I mean, I could do erosion controls on either side of it. I mean, the land really slopes towards that front intermittent stream. And like I said, we're not really going to be disturbing the soil outside of just putting those pins in for the posts, which are just driven down with a drill. There's no excavation, no digging whatsoever. But I see doing erosion control it kind of from the corner of the house here, using I don't know what you call it, the soil fence, whatever. From there, kind of across to, I know you can't see my cursor, but about where your cursor is there, Miriam, which is where
Yeah.
our shed is, which isn't on that map. But that would keep any runoff from the house running towards that stream at all. And there is, I mean, and the slope really from the back of the house, the whole yard slopes from basically the shed behind the house slopes all the way down towards that front intermittent stream, whereas the other intermittent stream is actually fed from kind of the lot behind the lot, not from the house at all.
Okay.
So that's what I would be thinking. I'm totally open to suggestions, and you know, I think you guys are more the experts than me on this, but that's the one spot where if there was any erosion, that's where I would see it coming from.
Well, usually what we like, unless the conditions really require something more substantial, is to ask people to use straw-filled erosion socks or straw wattles without hay, because hay can have seeds that are invasive.
Right.
So
those are
either
those
straw
those
wattles
kind
or-
of fabric tubes that you run across the.
Yeah, they can be the fabric tubes that you stuff, or you can get straw wattles that are kind of
Yep.
braided. And those work pretty well.
Okay.
And what we often ask people to do is, to make sure that they have a little extra on hand in case, the wattles get damaged or the project takes a lot longer to get stabilized and you
Yeah.
need to repair them.
Yeah, and like I said, I expect there to be very little disturbance of the ground using this system. It's basically like, I know it's like techno metal posts. They just drive in and then that's it. There's really no, like I said, there's no excavation whatsoever really to them.
So often with these projects, Jeremy, the applicant tells us where they're proposing to put the erosion controls so that we can just sort of say, refer to the plan. But since you don't have them in the plan, maybe we should spell out in our permit, where they should go, like how far away from the project area.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I would say that if we go from that corner of the house where that last pier was, so towards the driveway there, that there would be erosion controls from the corner of the house. I'd say, I mean, really, I think 50 feet would be, everything slopes up beyond that. So I think that would pretty much contain anything that were to come off of that.
So 50 feet
Yep.
from the downhill corner of the house.
Yep.
Okay. That sounds good to me.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that would take us to just the other side of the shed. And like I said, at that point, everything's sloping back to the house and away from the stream.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody have more questions? Pretty simple, pretty straightforward, so I don't think we have to. So I do have a draft. Special conditions if we are going to agree on a negative determination with conditions, negative number 3. And because there's a BVW here, it is under the Wetlands Protection Act as well as the bylaw. Well, sometimes we've had these minor projects that only fell under the jurisdiction of our local bylaw because the resource was an isolated wetland, but in this case, it's a BVW. So both sets of regulations apply.
Okay.
Okay, So, would somebody like to make a motion to close the hearing? The public meeting.
We'll make a motion to close the public meeting for 176 West Pelham.
Thank you. And, do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington. Beth, is Robin there? We had her. Robin, you're muted.
Am I okay now?
Yep.
I second, or I'm, aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, Jeremy.
Aye.
Okay, let me pull up the permit, the draft permit, and we can look at it. If I could pull up the right one, I got a few of them open. That's not the right one. That's the right one. Okay, you guys see this?
I do.
Yes.
Okay, so yellow is highlighted where I just want to make sure I had it right, the language correct. I think this is the description of the project: to move a shed, demolish an entryway, build a deck, porch, an entryway, mudroom.
Sure. Yeah, that sounds good.
And then the plot plans, proposed work is within the 100-foot buffer zone of 2 BBWs. And then I was just gonna say BBW resource areas have not been professionally delineated, but were confirmed on a site visit. That sound good?
Sounds good.
Yep.
While they're passing under the while the bordering vegetated wetland passing under the driveway by a culvert is more than 100 feet from the house, the limit of work, including the dumpsters within. So actually, he told us the dumpster's gone, I think he said.
Yep.
But we'll just say this. But I think that's good enough. And oh, that didn't work. All right, and then these are all our boilerplate conditions. Nothing's different here. No hay. Once erosion controls are in place, applicant will send us photographs in lieu of a pre-construction site visit. Erosion control should define the limit of work. No major changes made to pre-existing grade. If any changes, you need to come back to us before doing them. Construction materials have to be removed. And didn't I put in something about where the erosion controls were gonna go? Here I go. Erosion
There.
controls. Erosion controls consist of straw-filled erosion socks. I hope that's not the applicant. Or straw wattles shall be installed prior to the start of any other work authorized under the determination around the project area. Get our word dumpster out because it's not there anymore. Erosion control shall extend 50 feet from the downhill corner of the house. All right. Anything else? Okay.
Okay, so then that last one, I just saw that last one, 16. You know, because of the delay in the project, I might just be kind of framing up the frame of the deck, building the entryway, and then finishing off at a later time. But when it's all done, you want a picture of the whole thing as
Yeah.
complete. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Your permit is good for 3 years. You don't have to
Okay.
get it done this summer.
All right. That was the original plan, but I think I'm going to cut myself some slack now.
Okay. All right. So do I have a motion to approve do we all agree that this should be a negative determination number 3?
Yep.
Yep.
Okay, somebody want to make a motion to approve the special conditions and the negative determination of applicability number 3 with conditions?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, a second,
I second.
David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan is nodding and thumbing up. Okay. Scott is the.
Aye. Sorry, my mute wouldn't come off.
That's all right. And Wilson.
Aye.
And do I have everybody's permission to sign digitally for you?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Scott says yes too.
Yep.
Okay, I will, Carrie's gonna be, not available tomorrow, but I will send this out and I will send a digital copy to you, Jeremy. And you'll be all set. Thank you very much. We're good on that. Okay, next, we have 7:30 is our continued public hearing for Ames Pond. Should we go over the minutes before then? We have
Sure.
two sets of minutes to review from June.
Yep.
Let's take the first one, which is June, where are they?
16.
16.
Yes, has everybody had a chance to look at them?
Yes. And I found a very cute typo.
Well, let me see if I
I'm
can
very
find,
good at those.
I like cute ones. All right, let me see if I can find the minutes. All right, I got it. Where is it?
Page 4, the 14 Lake Drive.
Yeah,
And they're talking about, and they say, you know, there was a typo.
fix the
And I can't-
typo.
Yes, and they go, the typo is a sentence that was cute short.
Oh. Thank you. Oh.
And then I have a question because after that, the example seems to say it gives the short in part of the sentence, and it seems to indicate it was changed to the longer part of the sentence. So could somebody just look at that and see if I'm just not understanding it correctly? But the cute jumped out at me. I was like, that's funny. Maybe I won't even say anything.
My recollection was that the error was that I said that the setbacks were 15 feet on both sides, and that they were in fact were not 15 feet, that they were 15 on one side and 10.3 on the other side. So I mean, we could just take that typos that was cut short, and then how about if
Anyway, I
go-
was just saying I found the rest of it a little confusing, but if everybody else is fine with it, just turn cute into cut and we're good to go.
I don't know. It says change from setback will increase to achieve the required 15 feet to setback will increase to achieve required 15 on one side. I think that makes sense.
Okay.
I mean, they wanted to make sure it was correct, that we weren't saying that it was 15 feet on both sides. That was the point.
Okay.
Okay. What we didn't say here is that this was a minor change. I don't see in the minutes. I think we did discuss that this was a minor change and didn't require any amendment. Should I add that? SEC
That's true. We did say that.
agrees that change is minor and due to a clerical error. Therefore, no amended order is required. Okay, I think that's important. All right. Any other changes to this? Okay.
No.
Motion to accept?
I'll make a motion to accept the minutes from 6:16 with the one typo correction.
Okay, second.
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
I.
Khan,
I actually wasn't present.
you were there, so you're abstaining. And Wilson.
Aye.
Okay, then we have the 6:23 minutes. Any cute typos for that one?
Yes.
Okay, let me find them. Hang on a second.
I'm kind of glad we didn't get the ones from 7:14.
Yeah, that was a long meeting too. All right, I'm trying to find the minutes. Where'd I put them? They should be right here. They are right. Okay, got it.
I don't have mine open, but on page 7,
Yes.
Where you're talking about, I don't have them open in front of me, so I don't know where on the page it is, but when you're talking about
Let me see if I can share it.
site visits and you say Sunday, July 26, you mean June 26, I believe. Wait, there's like a list.
Right here.
Right, because that should be June 26.
Hmm.
'Cause those are the ones that was the one I had to miss because I was
23,
away.
24, yeah, you're right. That should be it. Okay. Very good. Anything else?
Nope.
Okay. All right, so, a motion to approve those?
I'll make a motion to accept the 6:23 minutes with the correction.
Okay, second,
I second.
David,
Aye.
DeFont, I, Harrington,
I
Aye.
great. All right, so we got that taken care of, and the minutes from July 14th are not ready yet. So those will come. And we have 10 minutes before our next topic. I can give a couple of updates on some items at the end of our agenda. We're still waiting to hear back from Bob Douglas with his proposal for 66 Lake Drive. He had said he was going to get us something last week. I've sent him another tickler. And similarly for 27 January Hills Road, there's another enforcement order where they were supposed to be getting back to us and said they were going to last week. So I sent them a tickler. And I got a phone call and I have not spoken to him. I had tried to reach out to Patrick Garner about, kind of moving up the timeline for our consulting work with them. And he left me a voicemail message saying to call him back, and I have not had a chance to do it this week. So I will have something to report back soon, hopefully. I will call him back. There is, I'm trying to think who else is here that we need to talk about any other items until we get to agenda items that are on the list. Are there
Pine
any
Street and
comments?
the tree,
What?
Pine Street and the tree takedown at
Yes, do you
at
want to
the,
give us an update on that, Mary?
the North Lake.
Yes, what is the update?
So I don't have any update on it. I think we were gonna talk about sending the person a notice that he was working on the land without a permit. We didn't go talk about that again to firm that up.
We didn't, and I'm sorry if I dropped the ball on that. I did not draft a letter. Did we give me, and I didn't see the minutes from, did we vote that I was going to draft something and send it off? Was that? Does anybody remember?
I think we were gonna discuss it again at last meeting, but we ran out of time and didn't discuss it.
Right. So, so do we want, this would be kind of an enforcement warning? Is that kind of the way we were thinking about it? Like a
I think
letter,
it's
not
weird.
an enforcement order per se, but a sort of a letter alerting them that we're aware of this and what action are we asking for?
Well, initially, I think we were looking to see if he would dig out the culvert where he had pushed all the tree into that, but subsequent, somebody, I think he removed the tree roots and somebody else dug out the culvert.
Somebody did it.
Somebody went down and did it.
Okay, so that might have been from LWA.
Yeah.
That was the biggest concern, was that the culvert was damaged or the ditch and needed to be cleaned out, but it sounds like it got taken care of.
I think what we were doing is saying he can't be doing all that digging on his property and than to not do anything to interfere with the code.
Right.
COVID in the future.
He was moving earth and he was removing trees without a permit. Right? That was the point of it. How about if I draft something next meeting
Okay.
and then we can vote on it. Does that sound all right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. I will do that. And if I had volunteered already to do that and didn't, my apologies. Janice, you got your hand raised?
Yes, I was just thinking, I think you guys had sort of a pamphlet about, what you can do and not do under the Wetlands Protection Act. I don't mean the thing that we were talking about on the website, but there used to be like just a paper handout sort of along the lines of what either some other conservation administrators had created.
Yeah.
When I was looking through my old emails, I saw one that Shutesbury had. It had like a heron on the front.
Yeah.
That you might include something like that along with the letter.
Yeah. We have a handout that we created this year that has a summary of all the permitting issues around the lake.
Okay, yeah.
So I can, and we can include that as well when we send the letter. That's a good idea. I know that Connie is here to talk about the 1987 order of conditions for that's on their property from 27 January Hills Road. Hi, Connie. You're muted. I had reached
29 January Hills.
29. I'm sorry, I got you mixed up with the other property.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know, so the story for the commissioners is that they sold their property, but they made an agreement with the buyer that they would take care of getting the certificate of compliance issued and getting this old order detached from their property. I reached out to the Round Hills Homeowners Association. And they were very curious about this and curious that this particular order was never attached to any of the other subdivided properties that actually are in the Round Hill subdivision. And somehow it got attached to the Capelli's property, which technically
we are not part of that, right?
which wasn't part of that subdivision. So that seemed kind of wrong. But I thought that, and I invited them to come tonight, but I think they're coming later. So I don't want to keep you all waiting that long, Connie. My thought was that maybe we could do a site visit with the homeowners association, just so the commission can see what the road looks like compared to the map. There is no current site plan that describes the road as it exists right now. It's because it's changed so many times. They kept changing the design over a 10-year period. So I think the commission would need to decide whether we can issue this based on a site visit or whether we feel like we would be wanting to require an as-built. I think that's the important thing. Personally, I think a site visit would be sufficient rather than requiring, for a 35-year-old permit, requiring somebody to try to reconstruct that history.
They're all dead.
Right.
Did the homeowners association have any concern with the condition?
Well, they were just surprised. They weren't concerned because the properties have been sold multiple times and nothing ever got flagged on any of those properties. So this condition isn't deeded. There's no deed recording on the other properties, which just seems like it was improper and should have been. But there were multiple subdivisions and re-divisions of these properties before they ended up in their current configuration. Janice?
I know a little bit about that. It started out with Howard Coben doing the subdivision, and then he got into some wetland difficulties and there were all sorts of things going on, and he disappeared and Doug Cole purchased it and then redid it. So that may be some of the reason why the plans changed as well, because it had a new owner or whatever, developer.
Right. We have the old 1987 site plans. I've sent them to people. But you know, in a sense, they never built the subdivision that was originally planned. It's a much scaled down subdivision with much larger parcels, and the road name had changed. And Connie's property, there, from what I could tell, there's only like a little triangular piece of land that got absorbed at one point into her parcel, many, like in the 90s. So I think that's how that deed kind of got connected to this old order of conditions, but so that's the question before us. How do you want to handle this?
So
I
what do
think-
we, what do we expect for the resolution? That will just take that order off?
The resolution would be, first of all, that we would make a decision whether or not we're going to require people to get as-built. And then if we are going to waive that because we don't feel it's necessary, it would be a certificate of compliance that would remove this encumbrance from the property. Janice, go ahead.
Sorry, is part of her property that's been developed within buffer zone or riverfront?
Part of her property is, but not the particular part that was part of the subdivision. It was just like a little corner down by the road.
So it seems like it should be a fairly minor thing to just
Yeah.
do a site visit and issue it if it's really not impacting wetlands in any way at this point.
No, it isn't. It's not.
It
There
is
were
7:30. It is 7:30 now too, just.
Yeah,
heads
that's
up.
right. We'll start in a minute. We can start late. We just can't start early. So, what, can we make a decision just so Connie doesn't have to wait?
I think a site visit is a good idea. For most certificates of compliance, you always do a site visit. So maybe we do the site visit, and if we're okay with the way basically the whole subdivision kind of looks in terms of wetlands, then maybe we issue the certificate of compliance.
Okay, and the subdivision, the order of conditions originally was for the construction of the road. It wasn't
for the road.
for the building of houses. It was the road construction. And again, it'll be hard to see. We do have the design from that permit. Back in 1987, we have the site plan. I've sent it to everybody. So, Connie, what we will do is set up a site visit in the next week. And you're in Florida, so you don't need to be
Right.
for it.
Oh, good.
And then you'll need to submit a Form 8A to us. Carrie, you have your hand raised?
Sorry, it just sounds like someone has a TV on in the background. It's making it really hard for me to hear. Thank you.
Thanks. So we'll do a site visit in the next week. And then Connie, you'll need to submit a Form 8A. And I guess sadly, it falls on you to do this, even though it technically isn't your responsibility. It's really should be probably Round Hills Road subdivision. But I think, you're the one who has it attached to a deed. So I can talk you through how to fill out the paperwork, but I just want to, so the commission is saying we want to do the site visit first, and then we'll make a decision whether we want to do an as-built or not. Okay, so we're meeting next on August 11th, which would be the soonest that we could issue the certificate, Connie, and I will, I'll be in touch with you. And if that helps, okay? All right, thank you. All right. Okay, 7:33. So let's open the continued public hearing for Ames Brook trail maintenance notice intent. Hi, Kristen, and Chris Volante's here from Kestrel.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I'm Kristen McDonough with SWCA, here representing Kestrel Land Trust. Chris Valenti is representing Kestrel Land Trust. We presented a notice of intent last hearing, which was July 14th, for trail maintenance and improvements at existing trails at the Ames Pond Conservation Area. And during that hearing, the commission members raised a couple of questions. We prepared a written response to those questions and gave that to your chair on July 21st. And I don't know if the commission's had a chance to review that response. We can review that together if you want, if you haven't had a chance to review that. Yeah, okay. Can I share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So there are basically 4 points that were, well, 3 points were raised in the hearing and 1 point was raised by the DEP. So the first was the material staging. So as we noted in the public hearing on the 14th, a contractor has not yet been selected. However, SWCA envisioned that the laborers will all hand haul materials. And if needed, a low impact side-by-side vehicle would be used on existing compacted trails. We would propose the commission consider that no refueling within resource areas or buffer zones, including riverfront area, would be something that maybe could be conditioned. All puncheon and boardwalk materials are proposed to be installed by hand with mallets and mussels. The boardwalk proposed to be installed at the carriage road, which is this piece right, no, wait, sorry, this piece right here would be first so that we could get access to the eastern end of the bog boardwalk. The bulk of the materials associated with the new boardwalk and puncheon are anticipated to be staged in the parking area adjacent to Wendell Road, which is in the 100-foot buffer zone to BVW. From the parking lot, materials would be brought in as needed, piece by piece. Any additional staging of materials, which would consist of 1 or 2 sections of boardwalk at a time, we're envisioning would be placed south of the carriage road and outside the buffer zone, and only if necessary. And so that is this area right here, which is the top of a hill, a small hill. Shall I keep going, or do we want to talk about number 1 a little bit more as a group?
I think you can keep going.
All right, you got it. So one of the other commissioners mentioned mowing and asked if we could mow the wet meadow, which we called wetland A in the notice of intent application during ground frozen conditions. And the applicant, Kestrel Land Trust, is amenable to that. And so we would be willing to accept a special condition requiring that timing restriction. One of the other commissioners asked about the crushed stone within one of the trails at the site at the trail entrance, just south and west of the existing parking area, south and east, sorry, of the existing parking area. And we had mentioned we could just scrap the stone altogether and use puncheon instead. And Kestrel is amenable to that. And so we're hoping that the commission would consider that a practical alternative to reflagging the wetlands, doing another site walk. I mean, the purpose of this is to reduce the existing impacts that the existing trails have on the wetlands. And then the erosion controls. So this was a comment that came out of the DEP comment letter. They just said, make sure the commission considers erosion controls as part of this application and review. And so we're proposing erosion controls anywhere where there's ground disturbance. And the only place where there's ground disturbance is at the parking area. So we do have 12-inch straw wattles proposed. That area is relatively flat, but we'll consider whatever the commission recommends if you have alternatives. We are recommending that the contractors keep additional straw wattles under a tarp on site in case additional materials are needed. And then also attached to this letter, we included the Natural Heritage MISA response letter, which I think as we talked about when we opened the hearing, the projects in priority habitat but not estimated habitat, they found that under the Wetlands Protection Act, there will be no adverse impact to actual habitat, and under priority habitat, which is the MISA component, there will be no take of rare species. And that is because it's for a rare plant that exists strictly within the pond, and there is no work anywhere close to the pond. And I have the site figures available to share if anybody has any more questions or want to go back to anything. I should also just add, we are requesting a 5-year orders of condition, mostly just to cover permission to mow that wet meadow at the site entrance and general operation and maintenance.
I think Janice had a question.
I can't remember exactly how you were going to do the, I guess it was
Sorry, I was
punch-in.
muted. I'm sorry, I was muted. I
Oh,
apologize.
sorry.
Go ahead, Janet.
The area of the new punch-in or boardwalk or whatever over on what you call the carriage road. I was out there today and it's still pretty flooded. Are you just going to be placing, I assume they're raised. I can't remember. I was just wondering if you could just explain again how you're going to do that in that sort of perpetually flooded area.
Sure. So this area right here, this is the carriage road, and we're proposing boardwalk there.
Okay.
And that will be raised, and it's the same boardwalk as will be installed through the bog. But it has to be boardwalk. It can't be punch-in because punch-in sits on the ground.
Oh,
so
okay.
it's too, I think it's too flooded to use punch-in. So we were going to do boardwalk, which is more expensive, but I think that will last longer and will be able to withstand any additional beaver activity.
So how high will that be? How the support underneath the boardwalk?
Less than 2 feet.
Okay. Depending on the site, I suppose, between that and the actual bog area.
Well, the bog won't be that high. It's just this for this area. I mean, it's going to be site specific, but we want to have it installed so that we don't have to go back out and refile with the commission and do this again in 5 years.
Okay.
Kristen, I'm sorry, I was asking a question before and I was muted and realized nobody was listening to me. The question I had was about the mowing and the 5-year permit. And if we make annual mowing and the condition around mowing a perpetual condition, do you still need a 5-year permit? Because then you don't have to renew it. It's just goes on into in perpetuity.
That would be great. Thank you.
So if the commission agrees to that, I mean, that would be my thought. That's, I had drafted some conditions I was going to show before we close the hearing, and that was how I had drafted it. How do people feel about that? Janice, you got your hand raised.
Well, I'll let the commissioners talk first.
I know that all sounds good to me. I feel like Kristen's answers addressed my questions from the other last meeting and my concerns.
Scott?
I was going to say the same thing, Kristen. Thank you very much for following up and addressing all of the items that were brought up. I'm very comfortable with the proposal. Thank you.
I agree with that too.
Janice, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I guess I'm still concerned about the mowing of the wetland, and I think it'd be better to leave that as part of the 5-year maintenance just to see how that goes, rather than to make it a perpetual thing forever. I just think that they're going to need a new maintenance permit anyway for any other sort of trail work and fixing of the platform or whatever else. And so it gives you a chance to see how well that's doing.
How do you issue a 5-year permit? How does that work?
It's only for maintenance. So, I mean, some of this is maintenance. I don't know how you could do both, but
And is it a different form on, and?
Nope.
Here,
the same form. You just declare on it somewhere in one of those sections that you're issuing it a 5-year for maintenance.
oh, okay. All right, well, if we're ready, perhaps why don't we dig into the draft conditions and then maybe we can talk about that as we're looking through it. Is that okay with people? Are you
We
guys
need to
okay with
close
that?
the public hearing.
No, I'd actually like to keep it open while we go over the draft, just so that
Okay.
if Kristen wants to answer any questions, we can ask of her, because otherwise we can't ask. And I don't see anybody from the public raising their hands or wanting to comment on this project. Was there anybody who wanted to comment from the public? No. Okay. All right, let me find the draft conditions. Because there were some questions I had, and so that's why I wanted to. Oh, can you see it?
Not
Right.
yet.
Can you see it now?
We can.
The right document? Okay. So let me get to the top. So questions I had about approving our findings, the commission on the bank of Ames Pond and the associated 100-foot buffer zone, it wasn't flagged when we inspected it. Remember, the flagging was off. So do we just say it's mapped but not flagged? Janice, go ahead.
I was wondering about several of those, and perhaps instead of saying approve, just say accept. And that suggests maybe, to me at least, a little difference, but still lets them go forward. You know what I mean? It just to say that you accept their lines, even though we couldn't see them in the field, you know? Approving suggests that you actually able to see it and approve it.
Should I say that we couldn't see it?
I don't know. You might as well, because you're doing it for the other ones.
Okay. And then we find that land under waterways is a present but was not mapped or flagged. I could say here is present. What, isn't that kind of the same language?
I guess so, yeah.
That's right. We did delineate bank, but the flags were removed. And we did not separately delineate land underwater because it is within the limits of bank.
So should I say it was mapped but not flagged? Although it was mapped but not flagged. And I'm sorry, land on waterways. What did you say, Kristen?
I said it was not separately delineated as it's within the limits of bank.
Right. We approved the delineation of banks. This is sort of the same thing. We're just getting rid of this, right?
Yeah, it seems like that's the same banks.
Well, also there's South Brook. The bank of Ames Pond and.
Oh,
and-
yeah.
Okay. Get that out of there. Board vegetated wetlands 8 as mapped and flagged or as mapped?
Just mapped.
Okay. Approves delineation of the 200-foot riverfront area of South Brook. Bordering land subject to flooding is neither delineated nor approved. We protect the 100-foot buffer as a resource area. And we find that a portion of the project area delineated on figures 3 and 4 is located within priority habitat. Is that correct? Okay. Project proposes to upgrade several trails to improve public safety and accessibility, including improving, repairing existing wetlands, crossings, boardwalks, and puncheons, and expanding parking. Project proposes to close a portion of trail along Ames Pond, stabilize rock steps leading to a vista outlook, and other things. Work permitting under this condition shall conform to the following plans and documents. And so there was no change to the there was no update on the plan document. So this is the same one.
That's correct.
And then I said, with the exception that only a puncheon is approved as opposed to a crushed gravel surface for the accessible trail from Wendell Road parking and along the A series wetland.
Isn't
that-
it also that in the notice of intent, it says mowing, I don't know when, I think it said something different for mowing, so there's a slight change there.
Right, well, the mowing is down below.
Yeah,
So
okay.
we'll talk about mowing later in this. Does this capture, Kristen, what you feel like? the change?
Yes, so far this is all perfect.
Okay, good.
Thank you, Miriam.
All right, and then this is all boilerplate. We're not approving any planting or seeding, right? There's no,
That's
That-
correct. The trail that is being decommissioned will just be allowed to naturally revegetate, which I think will do fine on its own. There's plenty of Chamaedaphne and pitcher plant and it'll do well.
okay, and so here again, erosion controls as described in the parking lot area. No tree removals, minimal disturbance of plants for when absolutely necessary. And notify us 48 hours before the commencement of work is a condition we often ask for. And then this is where I tried to capture the construction phasing that Kristen shared with us. Construction materials may only be stockpiled in the parking area. No refueling shall be allowed in the area designated, except for in the area designated for parking. Is that okay?
I would suggest that maybe stockpiling outside of jurisdictional resource areas and buffer zones with the exception of the parking area. And same with the tree clearing. I would limit that to the commission's jurisdiction if that would be amenable.
May only be stockpiled or collected in areas outside the jurisdiction of the commission or in
Yeah.
the parking area. All debris shall be removed, no refueling. No, and here I tried to capture this language. No wheeled or tracked vehicles shall be allowed except for the limited requirements for annual mowing of the A-series wetland and the transport of construction materials for this project. Contractors shall minimize any incursions outside of the established trail footprints. Construction, that's a typo. Construction phase movement of materials shall either be hauled by hand or moved with a low impact, narrow off-road vehicle.
That's exactly what we had envisioned.
Is that okay, everybody?
Yep.
Okay. All punched and boardwalk materials should be installed by hand. Stockpiling staging of materials shall only be allowed in the parking area and the area south of the carriage road. I could do this better. Can only be allowed in areas outside of the commission's. Does that sound right? Jurisdiction except for the parking area and the area south of the carriage road.
Okay.
Yes, okay. All right, and then, this is all more boilerplate. Trash dumpsters, not really relevant, but we have it in there. Removal of vegetation, that's kind of already in there. I think that's redundant. And haven't I already said that?
Yeah, can we go back to that? I forget what number it was, but about the tree clearing, no tree shall be cleared. There may be a couple of trees that have to be cleared within the buffer zone associated with the parking area. So I don't,
Oh, sure.
and then also maybe just add jurisdictional resource areas or something like that. I'm sure that there may be some occasional branch cutting or sapling trimming in the trails as part of OMP. I don't know how we would want to word that, but
And to place erosion controls were required and let's just say minimal disturbance may be allowed. Leave it at that. Some tree removal, limited tree removal
I will say most of the parking lot expansion area includes invasive species removal, but
Should I, in the parking,
yeah, but as part of, future OMP, there may be a sapling growing in the trail that's a safety hazard, or maybe one or two trees that are native within the parking area that need to be cut. I'm not sure.
that, does that look right?
Yeah, that sounds good.
I would say wherever possible. Tree stumps.
Oh, that's good.
in place.
To allow coppice growth, we like that.
Janice has her hand up.
Yeah, Janice?
I just had a question about, I couldn't find the NOI. I thought I downloaded, but I didn't find it. So that's why I don't have some of these answers already. But in terms of this order of conditions, this does include sort of normal trail maintenance on the whole system? And if so, are you basically leaving it about what it is, which is maybe in some areas 3 feet or so, something like that? Were there any specifics on that?
Yes, we did have a section in the NOI about routine operation and maintenance, and the
Okay.
only trails that are proposed to be accessible are the ones identified in this NOI.
Yeah, so like the one that goes from the Cranberry Bog out, towards the boardwalk and stuff through the woods. That one will just be maintained basically at the same width or whatever. It's not going to expand to 5 feet or something like that. I know the carriage road is wider.
Yeah,
But
that's exactly right. And so some of the routine OMP that we're envisioning is, a downed tree that needs to be cut to be removed. Maybe some branches that grow into the trail that could be a safety hazard, that kind of thing.
Mhm. I was also wondering one last thing, and you probably already know about it, and it's in that sort of phase 2 about looking at the artwork. But someone showed me today the sculpture that's in the woods just north of the field in front. And I assume you guys have seen that. It's like some big slabs of rock and some old farm equipment pieces that are placed together. And they're just into the woods. It used to be open to the field, but the trees have come in between. And I didn't know if that sort of work would fall under sort of the part that you're doing with the artwork as well or not.
What I have right here in front of me, as far as phase 2, it's planned for next year. It's supported by Mass Trails Recreational Trails grant funding. And it includes all the other elements shown on maps 2, 3, and 4, both boardwalks, the pond edge trail closure, and the punch and repair and extension in area number 4. It also includes improvements in non-jurisdictional areas such as the rock step stabilization and signage. I'm not sure about specific art installations.
Okay, I was just wondering if that was something that could be opened up, even if not all the young trees are removed, but enough so people can see it to walk into it. It's just off the trail. And I'm sorry bringing up, I didn't see it before. I just saw it today when I was out there.
Oh, you mean maybe adding in a special condition allowing for that possibility if that's something that the applicant is interested in?
Yeah, if part of what you're going to be doing is trying to, allow people to view the different sculptures or structures. I sent an email to Miriam just about the time, the start of the meeting tonight, with a photo of that artwork.
Could we put in a special condition maybe about that would require like a jurisdiction, an administrative approval or something like that, or notice if that
Yeah.
had
Like,
happened?
doesn't that kind of fall under routine maintenance?
Well, not if you're cutting trees.
No, limited, what are we saying for limited for routine trail maintenance?
It's not really part of the trail, though. It's directly north of that field.
Well, what if we were to add to this condition number 13, limited tree removal. For
Or art sites or art
access
installations or something.
to
I don't
art
know.
installations shall be permitted. How's that?
It's okay with me. I don't, it was sometimes, depending on the art installation, some of them may need some branches or some saplings removed that are close to them.
That seems, makes sense to me. All right,
Okay.
let's move on and see the rest. I think this is all, again, boilerplate after that. And then post-construction conditions. So, we usually, or we often add a perpetual condition about no use of pesticides and herbicides and only organic fertilizers, which isn't relevant because I know those aren't going to be used, but we're going to put it in there anyway, if that's okay with you. No additional net loss of permeable surfaces. I kind of, again, sort of, it's a given, but just to make it clear, if at some point somebody wanted to pave the parking lot or something.
Gotcha.
And then a post-construction site visit. And then the mowing. And so let's talk about the mowing, because I was adding it as a perpetual condition. That only mowing after the ground is frozen in November or later. Question also had been brought up about whether a wheeled mowing would be allowed or not. I guess that's open for discussion. So I had that read.
I think that the wheeled mowing has been used in the past for, from what I've been told, 80 years, and the vegetation seems to be okay now. If the commission's okay with using wheeled mowers during ground frozen conditions,
Yeah. I think if it's frozen, the impact is minimized. So I'm okay with that if other people are.
I think that's what we had talked about.
Okay.
I'm good as long as it's frozen.
Okay, so that's that language, take out the wheeled sentence and there we have it. All right. So do we have enough information to close the public hearing? And
think
Janet,
so.
I have one more question, and the copy of the orders that I have seem to have different numbering, so I don't know, but it was the one in, let's see, the section under general conditions, where it talks about the commission shall receive in writing a letter with an original signature from the applicant no later than 30 days from the issuance of this order. And I thought maybe it should be something like, and before start of work or something like that. Because ideally you want that signature before work starts, right?
issue for this order and before start of work. Okay,
Okay, thanks.
that's good. And then make sure we do that in the future for other ones. Okay. All right, somebody want to make a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing on the Ames Pond Trail maintenance.
Let me just pause for 1 second. So I think the thinking here is that we would not make this a 5-year permit because now it has perpetual conditions.
What are your
Yep.
perpetual conditions?
What?
What are your perpetual conditions?
The mowing and the pesticides and herbicides.
I still don't think you should do it as mowing is perpetual until you've really seen how it
Okay.
responds. And if it's okay, then fine. But usually the perpetual conditions aren't a maintenance
Okay.
thing.
So I don't have it as perpetual. I have it, it just says post-construction.
Okay,
Okay, so, are we going, okay, so anyway, let's close the public hearing. So do we
I
have a
made a
second?
motion to close.
Mary moved. Do we have a second?
I second.
David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
Aye.
on,
Aye.
Aye.
okay. So, so are we agreed on these conditions as written? As any other discussion about the conditions?
I'll make a motion to accept the conditions as that we just reviewed as written.
Well, wait, what about the 5-year piece? Because we don't have anywhere in here about 5 years. I don't know where you put that. in the,
You put that actually in the order of conditions, not as a special condition. It goes in
form.
somewhere on the form. It says that normally they're 3 years, but it can be a 5-year for maintenance. So you just, I think you put it somewhere right around the area where you give the date of the issuance of the orders.
all right, I am going to open up EDP while we're doing this, so we need to have a motion to approve the special conditions, and I think there was a motion. Did we get a second?
Second,
Okay, David,
I,
DeFont, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
aye.
Okay, I'm gonna screen share EDP. Figure out how to do that. I think it's right there. All right, can you guys see it?
Yep.
All right, this is not an amended order of conditions. See, I made a mistake already. It's why I need to have everybody watching. Okay, we got all this. I got the plan document, July 5th. I think that's correct. We're gonna issue the permit tomorrow. And then where do I do this findings about maintenance?
Okay.
I think it's closer to the end.
Okay, and so this is correct. I've got the alteration numbers from the permit. No stream crossings, none of this. And then here's it is not subject to stormwater standards. We are approving it under the bylaw, 5 signatures. So I'm confused.
Hmm.
Is that the last page?
Open it up again. You think it was on the last page?
I thought it was near the signatures. That there was an option there.
Or maybe when I go to
Um,
sign.
Maybe I'll look through a regular one in the meantime and see if I can find it.
Unless I'm gonna upload all of this tonight, which I wasn't gonna do. I was gonna do it tomorrow, which I guess I can do. Let me just save this as a PDF. Sorry for people who are waiting for the next agenda item. We just gotta get through this. We're almost done. Okay. All right, I can, do you want to attach files? Yes, I do. Choose a file. And I want to go to,
Okay, so on the signature page on the real order of conditions, it says right underneath E signatures, this order is valid for 3 years unless otherwise specified, okay, as a special condition pursuant to general conditions number 4 from the date of issuance. So
Okay.
you do need to put it in as a special condition pursuant to general condition number 4, whichever one that was.
oh, then I have to go back. How do I do that? Shoot,
Let's
I
see.
attached it. How do I,
Maybe you can you type it in, just add something somewhere?
oh, what did I just do?
Yeah, so general condition number 4 is the one that says it's 3 years unless it's a maintenance dredging, or test project or
all right, I can add
other
this.
thing.
Hold on, I'm gonna stop screen sharing and share the special conditions. Oh, where is it? And it looks like something was left in yellow. That's not good. Let's close that and get it, the right one opened up. Stop screen sharing. All right. So let me get rid of the yellow, which we don't need. And then where would I add this?
You can add it anywhere. You can add it right at the beginning, or I suppose at the end. It doesn't.
Say the this order of conditions is issued for 5 years for maintenance.
Yeah,
That's all I need to say.
I think so.
All right. All right, now let me try to get back into EDP and see what I messed things up. Now. Okay, so you're saying it's when I'm doing the signature now, it's gonna. Janice,
I don't think so.
hello?
Sorry, I was muted. It's in the signature section that it says that they're good for 3 years unless you make a special condition that says it's 5 for maintenance. So you've just done that. So
All right, I may have attached the wrong. I may have already attached a version of the special conditions, so I'm hoping that that isn't gonna be a problem. It didn't, it's complete the field, so I have to give it, maybe it never went in. Special conditions for
you could try writing it in. Let's see. Oh, never mind. That doesn't make sense.
trying to find certificate of vote.
At the end of special, the regular conditions number 19, there's a place that says special conditions. If you need more space, please attach a text document. So conceivably, you could put it in there in like bold or something that this will be a 5-year maintenance order of conditions or something like that, if you can't get back into the other document to do that.
All right, well, I think I can. So tell me where, in which section are you in?
So I'm in section C, general conditions, and at the end of number 19,
Yeah,
it says special conditions. So if you only have like 2 conditions, you can just write it in there. So if you can't attach it to your full special conditions, maybe you can just highlight it somehow there, put it in
well,
bold or something.
I have this language and it says C attached special conditions.
And then add below that, maybe just, can you? I mean, just trying to figure out so you don't have to start from scratch, if that's easier. I don't know.
Can you guys see what I'm writing? Is that okay?
No, we can't see anything.
Oh, it stopped sharing. Sorry. Thought it was still sharing. Okay. Do you see what I wrote?
Oh, yeah.
Is
Okay.
that okay?
Yeah, I think that's good. That way they don't have to go searching through the special conditions to see it.
Yeah.
Okay, and then that's already there. Error check. Next, I have everybody's permission to, let me make sure things are attached. Ugh, do I have to reattach again? I'm
I think you
confused.
didn't save before, but wasn't the other one wasn't the updated version anyway?
And then I want special, you can see all the other drop downs, special conditions for Ames Pond Trail. Maintenance. OI. Okay. Confirm. Next. All right, everybody's permission to sign for them?
Yes.
Yeah.
And did we already, did we already vote?
No, I don't think we voted to issue
We
the
didn't vote
order,
to issue.
order condition.
So somebody make an order, make a motion.
I make a motion to issue the order of conditions for the Ames Pond Trail Maintenance Notice of Intent.
Okay,
I'll second.
okay. David,
I,
LaFond, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
Wilson.
Aye.
Okay. Let's just. We'll do it. All right. Moving on. Okay, I'm gonna stop screen sharing. Hang on, let me just save that. That is done. Great. We did it. All right. Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good night.
Have a good night. Thank you. All right, I think the next on our agenda is the enforcement order. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry, we are running later than we expected. Hi, I see Mickey is here. Welcome, Mickey. And is the landowner here too? No,
I don't see Jay Khan.
okay. So we received your revised plan. And I had a few questions and I did draft up a final order for the commission to review. So perhaps we can review and issue that tonight, is my hope, assuming that our questions get answered. One of the, can I, I'm gonna pull up the site plan, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Thought I had it opened. Nope. Give me one sec. One of the questions, Mickey, that I had looking at it was that on the site plan, you have these kind of gray areas marked, and I want to pull it up, and I wasn't sure what those gray areas were referring to. Let's see if I can find. Save it. Right folder. Do you know what I'm referring to?
I don't, Miriam, at the moment, and I'm traveling today, so I can't pull up the plan myself. So if you can pull it up, that'd be great.
I will get it. I'm just, oh, here it is. Okay, I'm there. Thank you. All right. So looking, can everybody see the site plan?
Yes.
Yep.
So the gray areas is just the planting where you're putting in fern. Is that what that is referring to? Or
Yeah, at the last meeting, I'm not sure which commission member talked about the area having been previously fern. So I actually pulled the seed mix and instead substituted ferns as an understory.
Yep.
And Paula, who's the landscape architect who put this together, I think is just trying to color to show planting areas there. It's just the commission asked for a planting plan of where the plants are to go, and this is kind of standard landscape architect plan language. So if you look at the plant list, the plant, all the plants have a lettering, and then the actual layout plan shows where those plants are to go.
yeah. I was a little caught off guard because the key said that the code for the cinnamon fern was OS, but you have it as OC, which is the, you know, the Latin name. So I think that was just a typo. in the
Yeah,
key.
yeah.
So one of my questions, Mickey, is that, and I'm thinking about this removal of the trench and regrading and moving the boulders forward. And without adding any extra fill, the fact that all of those boulders and all of those trees and tree roots have been removed, it's hard for me to imagine that something approximating the original grade would be recreated, because there's a loss of volume of material that's been taken out in the area where the trench was. And I don't know that it makes sense to not restore the grade approximately, so that you don't end up with sort of like a ravine or a divot. That's sort of direction of water.
I understand what you're saying. There is a stockpile of soil that's on the site, and again, with enforcement and fill, it's difficult to say what was there before. But what I did was I took all the boulders that were stockpiled in the back and moved them to create basically a separation between the yard and the restoration. So it's very clear, where he can't do any work beyond. And then just respread that material. So I know he didn't remove any material from the site. Everything that's there is just stockpiled. So,
But it was below grade or partially below grade, and they removed the trunks, the stumps have been removed, that will be hauled off. So there is a large volume of material that isn't going back into the ground.
I think that what the plan notes just talks about re-smoothing and grading out that site.
Mhm.
So I don't think there'll be divots. I think it'll just be smoothed out from what's there.
And will your company being acting as a project manager overseeing this work, or who's going to be overseeing the work?
Yeah, we're not retained to do this, and probably I would just, once they, what I like to do on these types of projects is, once they do things like remove the pea stone, remove the drains, they do the site work. I usually like to go out there when they lay out the plants and make sure that everything looks correct. So before they plant everything, it's a way to double check grades and make sure the plants are and the plants are the correct plants also. So my double check is usually right before they put the plants in place.
So there won't be any kind of restoration specialists reviewing how they're doing the excavation work. My concern is that you want to be ensuring that the soil is not too compacted from machinery moving around it, so that it'll be amenable to revegetating. And that would kind of be the job of a restoration specialist if they were overseeing the work. But it doesn't sound like there's a plan for that.
No, I mean, I'm happy, you can put this in any kind of letter, but I'm happy to go out there before they put plants in place. And it's a way to check grades, make sure that work's done before the plants go in. And I'm happy to go meet with Mr. Mitchell before they do that work.
Mhm.
Once the plants are in place, it's very difficult to go backwards.
Right. And but also once the boulders are in place, it's very difficult to change things if the soil has been compacted by machinery and is not going to be friable enough for the plants to thrive. That would be one of my concerns, is that in the excavating work of removing the drain and the trench, you're going to be having heavy equipment going back and forth, and somebody who's knowledgeable about what the soil conditions need to be for a wetland restoration needs to ensure that that the soil is not too compacted before it gets sealed up by the boulder line.
I asked Mr. Mitchell about how the work was done, and he used a mini excavator, so one of those very small excavators that did all the work out there. And he said that's the same type of machinery that would be used to undo everything. It wasn't compacted. Yeah, I don't know what the weight of that thing was, but I was able to dig holes into the soil without any problem. There was no compaction, so we can check that. But I think we're talking about a very small piece of machinery that's going to be doing this work.
Do other people have questions?
I guess my one question would be, and maybe this will be in the special conditions, is that there's some kind of, the guarantee that the plants survive. There's a 75% vegetation within 2 years, or the sort of the typical that we require for restoration. I just want to make sure that that's in there.
Yeah, I have that in there. I have monitoring and a standard.
Beth,
Janice.
I don't know if you can look at the notes, but all of that is in the notes.
It's in those tiny notes.
Replacement, there's monitoring, there's reporting. Those are all in the notes.
Yeah.
Great.
Well, I guess I am concerned in terms of the restoration process, that once this stage of your work is done, there will not be an environmental specialist working with the landowner for the monitoring phase. And, what I have envisioned for special conditions would be some reporting on the condition of the site, whether there's any invasive species that need to be addressed. And really that needs to be done by somebody who has your kind of expertise. And so that's kind of concerning to me, not having that kind of a consultant involved until this is seen to its fruition. Because we want it to be successful. We don't want to have to come back and say we're not happy with the results. We want to make sure that, things get reseeded or replanted in a timely way, or invasive species get removed quickly if they're starting to get established.
I think Janice has a question.
Yeah, Janice.
See, am I unmuted?
Yeah, we hear.
Okay, good. I was just wondering about timetable. Is this going to be done soon? Are they going to wait till the fall, or just what's the schedule for it?
Miriam, I don't know if you can enlarge the notes, but I actually put the dates down there, Janice. I put the reporting schedule. I put the success goals.
Oh, good.
So all of that are in the notes on that right side there.
In the fine print.
Yeah, sorry.
Not moving.
But these are all the notes that the commission asked for the last time, and so I made sure they were on the plan.
Good.
All right. Can you guys see this? I'll try to get it.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see if I can scroll down.
So if you go down, Miriam, there's some time schedules and so on.
Can you just tell us in the meantime when that is?
I don't remember.
Okay. Whether it's soon or whether it's September or something like that.
I think I said the work had to be done. I think it was the end of August.
Okay.
Is that where you mean sequencing?
No,
more like a schedule.
If you go down a little further, Miriam, sorry. I tried to be very specific because it's an enforcement, so I wanted to have some clear dates.
Oh, good.
I am trying. It's freezing because it's such a big document. Adobe doesn't work very well because I use like an online version of Adobe, and it just I have no way of maneuvering around it. Sorry.
It would be nice if you took that piece off and put it
there we go
on a separate sheet so that we could actually read it.
Prior to August 30th. Okay, I lost it. It was right there a second ago. Sorry. I'm sorry, it's just, it's not behaving. It's not that I'm not trying. It's just,
I saw it there for a moment.
um. Is there anybody else who's able to pull this up on their computer? Maybe I just, maybe if I just close, I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna stop screen sharing for a second, try to see if I can at least open it up on my own, okay? When I'm not.
Okay, I opened up a copy on my computer, and that last part on reporting,
Yeah,
I don't know about planting, but it says prior to August 30th, provide email memo to the Shutesbury Conservation Commission following site work and planting, along with digital photographs and any discrepancies from the approved site plan. Prior to May 15th, 202, I think there's another 2 missing, or 3 maybe. Provide email memo to the Shutesbury Conservation Commission at the start of the second growing season, along with any corrective actions required prior to September 15th, 2023. So that other one needed another 3. Provide memo and digital photographs to the Shutesbury Conservation on status of project following the second growing season. If 80% native vegetation has been successfully established, request removal of enforcement order. So
Okay,
that's in the last section.
I'm gonna pull up the draft response order. And let's go through it and see how this looks. And we're seeing it, we're writing, okay? Because I kind of captured some of this. So I wrote this in the format of a letter again. And I reaffirmed some of the findings from the first letter that we approved last time. So this number 1, 2, and 3 is just repeating. And then I have the commission approved the restoration plan with the following conditions. And maybe I should say conditions and amendments. General conditions, and some of this is boilerplate from notices, orders of conditions that we typically do. Landowner restoration work will be conform to the inclusion of contours. Whoop. Shall conform to, that's a typo, to the restoration plan. The approved restoration plan shall include no more than a 15-foot perimeter of grass around the house structures. That's what we had discussed last week, 2 weeks ago. Then I have here the relocated line of boulders indicated on the site plan shall serve as the limit of permitted grass lawn and shall be maintained as a perpetual condition. I think probably not, is my thought, and just say, once it's been restored and revegetated, no further work shall be allowed. Allowed beyond the line of these boulders without prior review. Does that sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay. That kind of captures what we wanted, I think.
Mhm.
And then a landowner will provide a copy of this to persons doing any of the work. Anybody doing the work is responsible. They receive a letter in writing saying that from the issuance of this letter and before the commencement of any work, stating that they've read the order and understand the conditions. And then here's some things that I added. The landowner shall notify the commission at least 7 days before the commencement of the excavation work so that representatives of the commission can inspect the site flagging and observe during the excavation work. The purpose of this site observation is to ensure that, given the lack of information provided by the landowner regarding the preparation of a wetland soil profile, that the excavation work is sufficient to accomplish the restoration goal. And then prior to the commencement of any excavation work, the landowner shall provide to the commission the credentials and contact information of a qualified restoration specialist who will be overseeing and monitoring the work. That this was with the thinking of whether we want to require that or not. Could I hear from some commissioners, you know, what your thoughts are about that? These two conditions?
I think number 11 is fine, is good. You know, I'm kind of wondering about requiring a specialist. And I mean, it's a good idea.
Yeah, I like number 11 too. For number 12, I do worry that it's going to be difficult for the commission, you know, to go back if it's not done correctly the first time, for us to engage in this properly to ensure that it's restored. I think really need someone on site while it's taking place to, you know, to ensure that it's fully restored. And so I like number 12. I don't know another way to achieve that outcome without it.
I don't think that we as a commission should be assuming the responsibility entirely of being the site monitors. I think that it is reasonable for us to want to do inspections from time to time, but I don't think that it should be our responsibility to be like the project managers. That I think that's overstepping, and we should.
Yeah,
we should.
that's why I'm suggesting, Miriam, that I like number 12. I don't know another way to get that without having somebody there overseeing the work.
I agree. I like 12 too, just because of all the concerns we've had in the past. It would be nice for them to have that resource as they're doing the work.
And so then the question would be, are we talking about having them have somebody there throughout the whole grading and planting and everything? Or as Mickey said, having Mickey come or somebody from SWCA or another qualified wetland specialist come at certain points during the project to check in? Because
I like that Mickey would be coming before the planting, but I'm thinking that there's a lot of important activity that has to happen before the planting, and that there should be some checks. I'm not saying that there has to be a restoration specialist there from 8 a.m. till 5 p.m., 5 days a week, but perhaps, you know, and I'm not a restoration specialist, so I wouldn't want to second guess such a specialist in deciding what kind of monitoring, but I believe that in other kinds of wetland restoration and replication projects, they do have a specialist that's the project manager and who oversees and monitors. I think that's a pretty standard way of doing business for these things.
Yeah, I don't think that person needs to be there all the time, but I think they need to be there as they start each process to go.
And I think they need to be, I'm sorry, I'm interrupting, but they need to be taking responsibility. I mean, I think the whole point is that there be some accountability so that, you know, there's somebody who also is taking some responsibility for making sure it's done properly.
Yeah, so I just think we maybe need to spell it out a little more, that we want somebody, maybe they are doing a daily check and we require an email with pictures from each of the visits that they do. But then, you know, it's up to us, I guess, if daily checks, if everybody feels comfortable with that.
Yeah.
The monitor shall submit daily photograph reports to the commission. How's that sound?
I'm fine with that.
Me too.
Good, okay. Construction phase conditions, erosion controls, yes, 12-inch wattles. Stockpiling, kind of standard boilerplate stuff. All construction materials stockpiled in the area designated as a parking area, all debris will be removed from the site. No refueling anywhere within 100 feet of the protected resource area. Unconsolidated materials we tarped. Again, boilerplate. I see, authorizes. Okay. Here I had been talking, I had thrown this condition in as just whether we wanted more detail around the sequencing, but I think that we don't need that, given that we are putting some other conditions in for monitoring. And then here's conditions. Upon completion of the initial restoration work, the landowner shall contact the commission for a post-construction site visit within 30 days. That would be this year. Pesticides, do you want this or not, these conditions?
I think of those as more with lawns, I think with this, I think it's gonna be fine.
And net permeable surfaces, I'm probably not important into this. So here I have a monitoring schedule that I put together. Dismissal of the enforcement order shall be determined. This is basically a standard for the dismissal. Shall be determined at a future date, no sooner than 2 full growing seasons, and only after the commission finds that the site has successfully been 80% revegetated and 75% revegetated with native wetland plants. The 75% reestablishment standard may include volunteer hydrophytic species as well as replacement plantings and seedings. The earliest date for the consideration of a dismissal shall be the fall of 2024, which gives us 2 full growing seasons. The landowner shall arrange commission site visits every 6 months in the spring and fall. And then monitoring shall include inspection and ordered remediation for revegetation failure. Ordered remediation for revegetation failure or the establishment of invasive species. No termination of the enforcement order shall be approved until the successful reestablishment of a wetland habitat has been verified. I guess that's kind of redundant. We don't need that. The commission reserves the right to require more frequent site visits. So this would be twice a year. And then I have post restoration monitoring. Following the completion of the restoration work, the landowner or its representative shall submit monitoring reports to the commission on a twice annual basis, no later than October 1st, April 1st, October 1st, and April 1st. Then my thought would be that we would do a site visit in October and April. If you think those months are not the correct months, we could change that. If you think, you want to come out in May, then we could make it a later report. I don't know, to see wetland vegetations, May is a good month.
Yeah, I think this might be a little early, April 1st, and then October 1st is a little late in the year for a lot of plants. So it might be better to get them a little more into the growing season.
Okay, so we'll say May 1st, and then you want to say September 1st?
Yeah, I think so.
And then we would, because by October it gets hard to see stuff.
Especially the ferns start going too.
May, and then change this. Okay. Monitoring report shall include a narrative summarizing the restoration progress as well as photographs of the site. Report shall include recommendations for any additional plantings. Should the site appear to be unlikely to meet the 75% reestablishment standard. The 80% really, because it's really 80 was what we're saying. And monitoring for invasive species. And the final monitoring report should be accompanied by an as-built plan and description. Description of how the site conditions are meeting the functions of the impacted wetland. How's that sound?
Good.
Okay, so we'll do site visits twice a year in May and September.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Any more comments?
I guess my one concern is that if we're planting, I thought Mickey's original dates were sort of some of August, and it's so dry right now, and you know, the fall is a better time to actually plant. I'm wondering if we should just talk about whether we want to hold off with the planting till more like into September. But then it's sort of like what's going to happen at the site between now and then, you know, there's a whole lot of other random plants going to start to come up, and, you know.
I mean, if they start the work now, at the very least, you know, it allows the site to remain as wet as possible, which is going to improve volunteers taking over. You know, the
Mhm.
sooner we get the
Right.
drain out, the sooner the site is going to start behaving more like a wetland.
Right. I mean, we could take out the drain, do the grading. You know, maybe by then we'll be heading into some cooler temperatures that are better for planting.
Right.
I just wouldn't want to put everything in the middle of August and then have a really hot rest of August and September, and then everything dies.
So under general conditions, should I say the landowner shall commence restoration work as soon as possible, except for plantings, which shall be installed after September 1st.
Yeah.
And I'm sure whoever's doing the planting isn't gonna want to do it at the wrong time either, so.
Well, also, we don't want to have them in a situation where they need to start watering stuff in order to meet the conditions aggressively. I don't think you would in that site because it's so wet, but we don't want to be wasting water while we're in a drought unnecessarily. So, okay, so added under general conditions, the landowner shall commence restoration as soon as possible, except for plantings, which shall be installed after September 1st.
Yeah.
And then, so that's that. Mickey, you have your hand raised.
Just, I had a couple of quick comments on the refueling condition. I don't know if there's any place on their property that's 100 feet or more from resource areas. Even if they took that little excavator on the road, there's wetlands along the road. So I don't know. I'm not sure how they're going to do that.
How about it shall be allowed only on
In the front yard, yeah, driveway.
Yeah,
Driveway.
driveway.
directly in front of the house.
And the other condition is, you know, when you're having the discussion about having a restoration person look at the site, you know, the discussion I thought was correct in looking at the site, you know, in phases, but it's very burdensome for a daily inspection for this type of project. So normally, even on a larger mitigation or restoration project, I would look at the site like in phases, like before construction, meeting with a contractor, and then they do the work, and then they finish that phase, and then there's an inspection. But it's very rare that it'd be a daily inspection and daily reporting. I think that's a burdensome condition.
All right, how about the monitor shall submit photographic reports to the commission after excavation? I mean, what phase after excavation? And what else? Whether
Why don't
phase-
you just make it on a weekly basis instead of daily?
is that less, would that be more doable, Mickey?
Yeah, that's typical. Either each phase of work or weekly, but I think daily is a lot.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Weekly, let's do weekly.
Yeah.
Okay. Um. All right. So are we good? Can we approve this? Somebody want to make a motion? Move away.
I'll make the motion to approve the, like, what, 678 Crack Corner Road enforcement order.
Okay. A second.
I second.
Okay, David,
Aye.
Font, I, Harrington,
Aye.
Khan,
Aye.
and Wilson.
Hi.
Thank you, Mickey, for working with us.
Thank you all. Appreciate all your time and effort. Sorry you had to go through all this. But I think
We appreciate your role here.
yeah, well, I think the landowner learned his lesson. So we'll speak to you during the year.
Sounds great.
Okay, bye all.
Okay, let's move on. The next on the agenda was to talk about a complaint that was filed about a potential violation, wetlands violation on lot 032 by Michael Hootstein, who I believe is here. Hi, Michael. You're muted.
Hello. Hi, everybody.
So it's late and I want to make sure we have some other things we still have to talk about tonight. So what I'd like to do is give you a few minutes, Michael, to just present your concerns to the commission. I have forwarded to the commission everything that you have sent us. So they've been kept apprised. But we always let people come and present in their own words, and people may ask you questions. We did conduct a site visit in June, and I can report on that, as well as a site visit that we did last June of 2021. Becky Torres is here too from the town. So if there's any comments that Becky thinks need to be, the commission needs to hear, want to give her an opportunity to respond to. But go ahead, Michael.
Wow. I've been watching the Conservation Commission through the Montague Road ANRAD and your ORAD decision. And of course, tonight I attended the entire meeting, and thank you. You guys are very diligent, very fair. Everything's out in the open, and you're enforcing the local and state Wetlands Protection Act. My reason for filing the complaint is that we've all observed that the town does not follow its own regulations. Most recently, to say thank you to the Conservation Commission, obviously on your last ORAD decision with the Montague Road, I was very pleased to hear the board commit to enforcing the local wetlands bylaw and protecting subsurface streams, which is very unique. But in terms of protecting drinking water and human health in Shutesbury, it is essential. So I'm just hoping the board will be as diligent in doing its restoration project on lot 032. I just drove by the other day, and right where a Conservation Commission 12 years ago identified wetlands, the town went in and mowed it. So I took a few pictures with my iPhone and saw that in the Kestrel Land Trust orders that, people should not be cutting down wetlands plants and mowing down the wetlands. And so I'm just hoping that it's very important. As I do not live near wetlands where I am now, but where I lived in Warwick, I lived by beautiful Moss Brook. And every time I blew my nose, I had to deal with the Conservation Commission. And it's very onerous for people who live surrounded by wetlands or in wetlands, that I think the town needs to enforce the regulations and laws on our own town. And nobody is above the law. So that's what my hope is. My hope is that the same diligent enforcement that I've seen here tonight and in the INRADs and ORAD decision, that the board, an incredible amount of work that you're all doing. I'm totally sold on this. I've never seen a meeting like this where remote meeting where everybody can make decisions and get it on a form. And I'll take a vote on it. It's a remarkable thing. And thank you. I just hope that we can enforce it on Lot 032. It is a hazardous waste site. I believe it's going to be shown to be very contaminated. And I believe it could be affecting up to 14 private drinking water wells. And this is within the jurisdiction of the Conservation Commission. So thank you.
Thank you. So Becky, I'll give you a chance to respond, but what I want to do is take a minute and just share some information with the commission that I have not shared, because this is the first time we've discussed this issue. So Michael filed this complaint with the board, with the commission at the beginning of June, and we had a very busy time in June, and we didn't take up the issue because we were meeting for 3 hours every time we met. There just wasn't time for this. And I wanted to wrap my brain around understanding where the nexus is between our wetlands regulations and jurisdiction and how DEP approaches waste cleanups on sites. So I talked to Mary Grover, who is our wetland DEP circuit rider. And she said she was going to ask within DEP and have somebody give me a call. And the question I had to ask, I had two questions. One is, in June, the highway department had asked whether or not they could bring in some loam and do some seeding on lot 032 in the area where the garage had been demolished. And so my question, we had permitted the demolition of the garage last summer through an RDA because it was in a buffer zone. And so one question I had is, can we issue a determination of applicability and a permit when the site has been designated 21E and there hasn't been a resolution of the 21E process? And if there is a project proposed coming before us that would be in the buffer zone on the property where we do have jurisdiction, how does the 21E process kind of factor into our wetland permitting role? That was my kind of questions. So I got a phone call from Sadi Motamidi, who is from the Bureau of Waste Site Cleanup with DEP. And he called me on June 15th and said that yes, there is a nexus between wetland permitting and 21E, that the 21E status pertains to the whole site, not just to the location on the site where there was a detection of contamination. And there was some testing done in 2021 by the town that found some petroleum products below surface, way out far in the back part of the lot, not anywhere near where the library is going to be built. But because the 21E status pertains to the whole site, if any permitted work anybody applied for permitted work to us because we had jurisdiction, because the work was going to be happening in the buffer zone or near a wetland, we would have to decide whether or not that 21E process was relevant or not for our permitting. If we, for example, he said, felt that we needed more data in order to determine whether the activity or the work to be permitted might hurt the wetland because it might disrupt contaminants that might get into a wetland, that we could then look to see whether the town had conducted all the assessments that the town needs to conduct, and condition our permit based on whether those assessments have been done. And we felt satisfied that the work that we would be issuing a permit for, we're not going to harm the wetlands. So, so that just, he also said that, this process with the town is still up in the air. He said that the town has to respond still, and determine who's going to be doing the cleanup, if cleanup is needed. He said they had a 1 year to tier classify the site and do a phase 1 study. He said the existing study that was done in 2021 is not a phase 1 study, and couldn't act as a phase 1 study because it wasn't submitted as an LSP submittal. O'Reilly, Talbot, and Oken, who did that report, did not submit it as a licensed site professional submittal. And he said that 2 years after tier classification, then if, assuming that there needs to be a cleanup, they would have to do a more comprehensive assessment of a plume assessment and then a remedial action plan. So it could be a lengthy process. I understand the town is looking at options to see whether other parties may be liable besides the town for this cleanup, if there is going to be a cleanup. And the select board just approved funds to do some additional environmental assessments. I reached out to Marianne Antonellis, who's the director of the library, and encouraged her to talk to the select board about getting funding for a professional wetland delineation, so that we could see very clearly where the wetlands are, and then would have a better understanding of where our jurisdiction is. There was some delineation work done in 2009, but it's out of date. And needs to be redone. So my understanding is that that is in the works. The town select board did approve funds for that, and that'll be going forward with the library project. So that's as much as I know. I do know that we went out in the middle of June. I think it was me, Beth, Robin, Mary, were you there for that site visit? And I think Don Wackluck was there with us. And we were just doing site visits that day and decided to stop and just take a look because Michael had said that he thought there might be a vernal pool that had been damaged, Michael Hoodstein. So we went out and looked. We did not see evidence of a vernal pool. The area that we saw in the back lot where it looked like there had been some work done, we could see some track marks and some depressions where it looked like some things, maybe some debris had been removed, but it didn't have any indicators to us that it looked like a wetland. We did notice that in the area of the garage, it was clearly that there had been some gravel fill added. And, the concern was raised that when we issued the determination of applicability back in 2021, we didn't approve any fill. So the highway department apparently has graded and added gravel to the area where apparently there was a concrete foundation and a drain, which is now a concern because there could be contaminants where that drain was. And it's now covered with gravel. So that is a question of whether, we would consider that unpermitted work. Anyway, that's all I've got. Becky, do you want to respond or talk?
Soon as I unmute myself.
Yeah.
Yes, I did want to respond to that last comment you made about gravel fill. I did, that's the one thing, one of the things I talked to Tim about. They did not put in any gravel fill. There was, when they removed everything, there was loose soil around the area from where the construction that looked more like fill. What they did do is they brought in a truckload of loam, trying to stabilize the area. Having removed that slab, there was about a big indent about 6 inches deep. because when they removed that, they had to crack it and bring it up, and the area was all unlevel. So he brought in loam because he was trying to stabilize the area and use that to mix in with leveling, putting, trying to smooth out the area after all the deconstruction of the building was done. So I'm not sure where the concept of fill is coming from or why, but that's not my understanding from having spoken with the highway superintendent.
So Becky, maybe I'm not understanding, but from what I just heard you say, it sounds like that meets the definition of fill from our perspective, bringing in material, whether it's gravel or it's loam. The permit didn't include any mention of bringing in loam, and I think that.
Correct. And that's the one area where Tim said he hadn't written that down in the original, but it was not gravel fill. The difference between gravel fill and loam is dramatic. You use loam to stabilize and to encourage growth of the reseeding of the grass. You don't use gravel fill to do that.
So maybe we're kind of not agreeing on the words. I'm talking about filling as in filling in with a material, and whether it's loam or it's gravel, it doesn't change the filling aspect of it. And the point I think is that because it wasn't part of the original permit and it was work being done in the buffer zone, we would have preferred that the town come back to us to say, hey, Conservation Commission, we realize that our original permit did not include permission to add loam, but we feel it's necessary and we'd like your permission to do that, which I'm sure we would have granted. But that's where, when people do permits, but then they go on and do activities beyond what they've agreed that they were going to do, we run into problems sometimes with applicants.
As you probably would agree, I think the purpose and the intent of this additional step was to stabilize it and keep it from eroding.
Sure. So the concern that was raised to me when I talked with DP was that we might want to be careful about permitting any further addition of materials onto the site until it's been fully evaluated, because if, for example, they needed to do soils testing and now there's 8 inches of loam added, they're going to have to go down and core below that added loam in order to
all
get
the
that
soil
result.
testing that was done went down 20 feet.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Any other questions that the commission might have?
So can you update us on when they'll be doing the any of this work that we've talked about? Delineating the wetlands or cleanup work, or where we're at in the process, I guess is my question.
Okay, number one, I want to clarify, there is, at this point, there's no understanding that a cleanup will be necessary. It might be, I'm just saying it has not been determined and I continually hear it referenced. So I just want to be clear, that is not yet determined. The wetlands delineation we're hoping might be done next week, end of next week or the following week. And we're not trying to move ahead on anything else until that's done. But the whole project, we hope to move quickly on at that point.
So how will or when will, what's the next step in determining if there's a cleanup necessary?
There's been submittals by 4 or 5 LSPs. Fuss and O'Neill has been selected to do a scope of work to identify if there will need to be any remediation or not. So they will be, that work we hope to follow after we're clear on the wetlands delineation, so we know how to approach the area.
Okay, thank you.
So my understanding would be that if there's going to be any remediation, that you'd need to come if you're within the 100-foot buffer or in a resource area, you'd need to come back to the Conservation Commission
Yep.
for a permit for that. As well as any design or building for the library. Again, if it's in the 100-foot buffer zone or near a resource area, then we would need to issue a permit for that.
Yep.
I had a conversation with Mary Ann, and she seemed unclear about whether or not a wetlands permit would be needed. And again, I don't know where you're going to cite all the different components of the library on the property. So maybe you can stay out of the 100-foot buffer zone, in which case I don't know that we have any jurisdiction. But my sense was that the area that was being considered was in 100 feet of wetlands.
I know the original, given the original wetland delineation, it was outside of it. So we'll see where the new delineation comes in and evaluate it from there.
When we went and did the site visit in 2021, and we looked at where the garage was, that was within the 100-foot buffer zone as just a point. So I think that if you find that that area is not in the buffer zone, we might want to go out and verify that delineation ourselves, since our previous site visit had found wetland indicators.
Was your previous site visit with a wetland specialist, or was it just Concom?
Not just Concom. We are the kind of,
I
we
mean,
are the ones.
It
I'm
was,
sorry, but we hear this a lot, but if we determine that something is a wetland, it's not just the Concom, but I don't recall everybody who was on that site visit.
yeah, no, I was just wondering if, because I know we had two different wetland delineations that were dramatically different. And so we need
Which
them.
two are those? Because I only have the one from 2009.
There was one done, I think, 2017, maybe.
Could you send that to us?
Sure.
I think what would be helpful for us is, looking at the new delineation when it comes out. And again, we are a volunteer board. We're not required to have wetland graduate degrees or certifications in order to make these determinations, but many of us have gotten training, and we have several scientists who have graduate degrees on the commission. Not referring to myself, though I have a science degree, I don't have a biology degree, but we do have some expertise and consultants to help us, Becky. So I hope you can respect that. Right now, I think the commission has a very deep bench in terms of our expertise.
That's wonderful. No, the diagram I was just looking, that's in Michael's report, the building is in that report that he cited is outside the jurisdiction. So I was just wondering.
You mean the original house?
The original brick cinder block building, if you look at Michael's report, I believe it's outside the jurisdiction. So it's just, it varies. And I'm just, I think it'll be helpful, to have you guys look at whatever they come up with too. And we can, and I know wetlands change, like you said, the 2009 or 10 was, at this point is outdated.
So in a situation where an applicant might have a wetland delineation that perhaps we didn't agree with or we had questions about, and there was going to be a notice of intent, through a notice of intent, the commission could hire a third-party reviewer, as we've done with other projects. So again, we don't have to rely only on our expertise. We also could hire a third-party reviewer to consult on a project.
Okay. But that's why I was surprised when you said it was inside it, and that's why I asked on the follow-up.
Well,
where
I was there with, I remember Robin was there, and
Yeah.
we did find hydrophytic vegetation and hydric soils. So
yeah, and you guys do have a deeper bench than we've had for a long time, and I do appreciate it.
yeah,
So we'll get a copy. It's very good, I think, that we're doing the wetland report. It'll answer a lot of these questions. And when you get that report, we'll get a copy of the report so we can take a look at it too. And so that I'm assuming that part of that is they'll flag all of this too, so we'll be able to go and look at the flags. At the flag delineation too, to in case there's any questions.
For sure.
Yeah, I think, you know, if it's it should be flagged in the field so we can take a look at the flags.
And snow won't fall for a long time, so it'll be.
I think the other piece of this, Becky, and it's really kind of like a process issue, but you know, there's this process going on that you're engaging with the select board and working with DEP around this 21E issue. And we're looking at wetlands and other kinds of environmental issues. And I think that it serves the town well for us to be communicating with each other and kind of keeping each other in the loop so that we're not kind of caught off guard or asking for information after the fact. And I'm wondering if you'd be willing to just CC us on your communications with DP and forward to us copies of what you're receiving.
I really would appreciate getting updates from you as well. Like, it would have been nice to know that that you were doing a site visit out on the property a month before I ever heard about it and things like that. So I think we can definitely both work on our communication.
Well, as I mentioned, it was an impromptu visit. It wasn't something that we planned in advance. And our plan had been that we were going to talk about it here as a commission to talk about this complaint and then decide how we want to move forward. So one outcome of tonight would be in response to these concerns, whether the commission wants to do another site visit or if they want to wait until it's been flagged by the delineator so we can take a look at those delineations. But would you be willing to CC us on communications with DP around the 21E issues?
Not at this point in time, no.
Okay.
Is there a reason for that, Becky, or could you elaborate on
I
that?
just feel like it came out of the blue and I just feel like I really would like to have better communication with you guys in the first place before committing to do something I don't know why you're intent on doing. So I just, yes, I will be happy to share information as I get it. And I have not been the point person on this, so I'm not, you know, I'm not in the best position to make any commitments at this point.
Well, maybe I can clarify why I asked that, Becky. We need to sort of understand this interface between the 21E reporting and wetlands permitting. And if a project were to come forward, we would want to make sure we're as fully informed as possible. And we probably don't want to have to put a records request into the town and go on a fishing expedition to try to find the documentation we need. It would be easier for us if just proactively we were CC'd. We're not going to be posting it up on social media. I think, you know, we use this information judiciously and just so that we can understand what's going on with the site. And also because we do communicate with DEP on a regular basis, it just feels kind of
at this point, the expected,
excuse me, it just feels a little problematic to have kind of one part of town government talking to one aspect of DEP and another part of a town government working with another aspect. And it seems like we could have more cross communication that would be productive.
I think we can share information very effectively without a commitment to be CC'd on every email. I found that earlier in the year when I was CC'd on different projects, I was drowning in emails from the Concom. And I think there are better ways to communicate than just CC every email and have everyone drowning in emails. I think all the significant pieces of information have been shared and will be shared. And at this point, I'm not going to commit to do more than that.
I'm wondering, I'm hearing what you're saying, Becky. I'm wondering if we could commit to following up on how we communicate between Concom and the town to find the best way to ensure what I think what Miriam has laid out, what I heard from you too, a commitment to work together as good government to make sure that we're sharing all the proper information the right way. And so I don't know if we're going to resolve that here tonight, but I do wonder if that would be a good follow-up item that we could commit to following up to laying out that process.
No, that would be a fine follow-up. It's just, as I've heard Miriam say a number of times in different meetings, that some of the information that's coming forward to the committee will be coming forward for the first time, although she's had it, she's received it first. And it just, I'd like to work on a communication flow that is good for the whole committee, and that that we can be transparent in what we're working on. But I, just that that's what I'd like to do.
Yeah, all
It's not
information,
communi-
Becky, let me just clarify that when information comes in for the Concom, the commission is always forwarded, information is always forwarded to the commission. So it isn't the first time that they've heard about it. It's the first time we've talked about it because we didn't have room in our agenda in June, but it's not the first time that they reviewed emails or gotten information. They received the complaint when it arrived.
Great, good to know.
So, so Becky, for me, the only commitment that I would like to see is that when you get this information, that you come back to the committee and give us an update so that we can all kind of talk about it if we have questions about it.
Sure, and if it's more appropriate for the Concom to come to a select board meeting, I'll recommend that.
Okay, that works too.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think at this point, we will wait until we get the wetland delineation, and Becky, you're gonna send us the 2017 wetland report. And while we have you here, just because I know this has come up before, I was missing the part of it at the select board meeting, so I didn't get the information about the timeline for the Sawmill River culvert replacement. What is that looking like now?
It's up in the air. There might still be a small possibility of it happening in November, the beginning of November, which would require going back to the Concom if that becomes a serious possibility. Otherwise, it appears that we would have to wait another year. The spring has a lot of obstacles, mostly environmental. The water has to fill back up at the lake, and it's the attempt to do they're attempting to do the project when the water is low, so you'd be in conflict with the dynamics of the lake. So right now we're hoping maybe to get it done in November if that's acceptable to everyone. Otherwise, it'll be next year.
Oh boy.
A year from the fall.
Okay. All right, well, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, let's move on. And I'm looking to see, do we have any remaining agenda items for tonight? I feel like there's a couple of missing pieces that we haven't gotten to. I see that Corey Greenberg is here. Yes, Carrie, you've got your hand raised.
I was gonna say on the update section, I still have something for top of the lake signage. I don't know if that was something I should bring up or not.
Only that the select board approved some language for signage to go up at top of the lake last week. And so there's going to be some language pretty similar to what Penny Jakes had shared with the commission, with a couple of small revisions, but substantively the same.
Okay. Good night. Thank you, everyone.
Good night. Thank you. Okay, yeah, we've got two more issues. So Corey Greenberg is here. Hi, and you are from the Round Hills Homeowners Association.
Yes, hi.
And
I know it's getting late. You guys have been meeting for quite some time.
Oh, it's early.
So,
Brad.
oh, well, in that case, I appreciate the work you guys are doing even more. Thanks.
So we talked about this earlier in the evening because Connie Capelli was at the meeting at the very beginning, and I didn't want to make her wait. But I'll just recap what we talked about, which was that she is tasked with requesting a certificate of compliance for this old 1987 order of conditions because it's attached to her parcel of land that she just recently sold. And she made an agreement with the buyer that she and her husband would take responsibility for making this request and getting the certificate of compliance. And it is a weird thing that it's attached to her deed, but not to any of the properties that are on Round Hills Road that are actually part of what was that original subdivision plan. It's just, I don't know how that happened, but it just happened. So the commission talked about doing a site visit so that we could then at our August 11th meeting, perhaps draft and approve a certificate of compliance. And that means going and taking a look on Round Hills Road. So, you know, I'd like to ask your permission to do that. It's, you know, it's a private road, but also maybe get you or someone else from your homeowners association to walk with us on the road, just so we'll bring the site maps, the old site maps, and we can just try to recreate where things were and where they are now.
Sure. Yeah, the site map you sent me, it looks very different from what's here now. So
Yeah.
I don't know how it's going to relate, but
I think it's going to be very hard to understand much of it. My sense is that the little piece of land that belongs to the Capelli's property doesn't have any wetlands on it and wasn't even part of the original subdivision in any, there wasn't any development on the road. It wasn't part of the road construction.
yeah,
But, you know.
yeah, I don't know anything. Oh, okay. So, yeah, I guess if you can let me know when you guys want to come, and I'll try to find, either I'll join you or find somebody to join you.
That'd be great.
So what are you looking for, just to make sure there's no wetlands?
You know, it's hard because the original or the plan for the original order of conditions is not how the road was constructed. So at some point, the plan changed, but the order of conditions never changed. So, you know, 35 years later, I guess if we had some concern about wetlands being impacted by the way the road was constructed, maybe we would bring that up, but I don't know that that's even an issue really in that. I don't know. I'm not aware that there are any wetlands in that particular area, but.
Yeah, I don't think so, but I'm certainly no expert. So it's basically you want to come and see and make sure there's nothing bizarre happening.
Bizarre, right?
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll try to figure out what we're going to do with this. So I will be in touch with you to schedule a site visit.
Okay, great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
And good night.
Okay.
I think the other thing on the agenda was was the tree at the
yeah, the
North
tree.
Beach.
Yep, and then there's actually a couple more things. So
Okay.
again, under unanticipated business, there's a woman here named Juliana Berube. Am I pronouncing your name right, Juliana?
Close, Juliana Barabee.
Okay. And she's a graduate student who is wanting to put some trail cams up in Southbrook Conservation Area for her research and wanted permission from the commission to do that.
Yep, I can talk a little bit about that if you'd like, or I do understand it's late, and so we don't have to go into too much detail.
You give us the 2-minute.
Sure, yeah. So thank you again for your time tonight. My name is Juliana. So I'm a master's student at UMass Amherst, and I'm doing wildlife research. This research is across all of New England, but right now I'm kind of focusing on setting up trail cameras across the state of Massachusetts. And I'm hoping to put up 2 cameras on town of Shutesbury conservation land. One of these cameras is located on Locks Pond Road, and the other would be on Montauk Montague Road. I always say Montauk. So the reason for this is that we are hoping to find moose in the area or find if there's not moose in the area. So the goal of this research is to address a conservation issue regarding moose and winter tick outbreaks, which has been really detrimental for the moose in New England. So that's my spiel, and I'm here to hopefully ask for permission to set up those cameras. They're very low impact. They are not on any human trails, and they also will have an identification tag with contact information for myself and my advisor, Tammy Wilson.
Well, I hope you find some moose. We definitely
I
have
do
them
too.
in Shutesbury. They've tromped through my yard more than once.
Oh, that's
The
fun
same
too.
here, and I just haven't
Destroyed my
seen
garden.
them recently.
Mhm.
Usually I'm usually destroying my gardens.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
I don't have any problem with it. I think
Why
that's
did you pick those two particular areas?
Great question. We have a random sampling design. So we have chosen areas in Massachusetts that we think moose might be present in. And then from those areas, we have a computer simulated random design that chooses spots out of those areas. And in those spots, we're putting the cameras. So I have a whole slew of landowners and permissions I've had to be getting over the summer.
I have a question. As a PhD plant scientist, I understand about methodology, but I have a wildlife camera attached to the porch of my house just for fun.
Right.
Would you be interested in knowing if I ever get a sighting of a moose, either visually with my eyes or the camera gets it coming? I live on Pelham Hill Road in Shutesbury, which is pretty close to Montague.
Yep. Well, I would certainly be interested in knowing just for information and anecdotal information.
I don't expect
I
you
don't
to
think I
give
could
the
include it
data,
for
but
the data, yeah. But I
hey,
do
they're
like hearing
around.
about it and knowing if they're around.
Yeah, we just actually I gave my husband a trail cam. I haven't got it set up yet.
They're so fun, just in
So let's
general.
see who's sleeping in the raspberry bushes.
Oh, yeah.
Something that's going through the raspberry bushes.
Juliana,
Really
I was gonna say, I am very supportive of your research and no concerns. The only request that I would make is if, you know, what you are finding on the trail camera, if you could share that with the commission,
Absolutely.
that would be helpful for us. I think as we write management plans or other things, so thank you.
Yep, I can definitely make that happen. Hoping for more than just squirrels.
great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thank you very much.
So one more item, couple items I'm just seeing that we didn't cover on an enforcement issue. I don't know if you guys remember 132 Leverett Road, where this is the old parsonage next to the fire station where they put in a septic system and a well last fall. We issued a DOA for them. It's in a buffer zone. It's a very small non-conforming lot. And there were some issues after that determination where the developer had to be reminded a number of times to put up erosion controls. He had a spoils pile from where they dug the well they dug the well in November, and they just removed the spoils pile at the end of June. And they had an erosion sock around it, but it was, if it rained hard and there was flooding, sometimes the sediments would get into the wetland area. And then he was supposed to keep the stockpile covered with a tarp, and sometimes it wasn't covered with a tarp, and I had to email him reminding him of that. And then he wanted to remove his erosion controls and sent me a photograph showing that there wasn't any grass on the site. And I had to remind him that he had to keep the erosion controls in place until it was vegetated. And this wasn't the month to do that because nothing's growing. They just seeded it in June or July, so nothing's growing there yet. Anyway, so he wanted a building permit for a garage. And what had happened was that the building inspector I don't know what happened with the building inspector, but they started approving permits without giving the Concom sign off notifications. And so I just went onto the portal and noticed there were like 4 permits that had been approved that involved ground disturbance near wetlands where we hadn't been noticed. So I'm trying to clean that up. And this was one of them where there was a permit approved that shouldn't have been approved without our review. And I looped back to the developer and said, you know, if you're going to do this, you're going to have to submit an RDA because it's in the buffer zone. And then he said he was going to withdraw the building permit. He wasn't going to build the garage after all. Anyway, I just wanted to let you know that has been happening.
So did we send anything to the person that's been approving these permits without notifying?
I called the clerk. I called the building inspector clerk and asked her why it was happening. She didn't have an explanation, except that maybe they weren't paying attention. And then she was going to go back and unapprove some of the permits so that we could review them. So we have to do a site visit this weekend for one of them. It's just a little messy if somebody was already issued a building permit and then we have to come back and say, oh, sorry, actually, you know, you have to get a wetlands permit. So it shouldn't have to happen that way.
So who's actually issuing the permits?
It's the building inspector was doing it. So the clerk was going to talk to the building inspector about it. And I sent the building inspector emails for each one of the permits that I had questions about.
And that doesn't have to go through the planning board first?
No. For building permits, no. It's through the Franklin County Cooperative Inspection Program. That's the building inspector for the county. So hopefully it's been straightened out. And I guess what it just means is I have to look at that portal, the permit portal on a regular basis. I wasn't, you know, I was noticing a lot of permits coming in and I realized we hadn't been doing a lot of site visits lately. And I was kind of curious why there hadn't been any. And then I started looking at them and going, oh, you know, some of these we probably should have done site visits for, and we weren't given that opportunity. So I wanted to try to correct that problem. The other issue that I have tabling for next meeting for August 11th, and I sent you guys all the documents, has to do with the dam, the water lowering permit for Lake Wyola. There is an open order of conditions that allows the town to, in the winter, dewater the lake and lower it. And it'll be up for renewal in 2023. And I thought that we should have a conversation with LWAC about it because when it was issued in 2018, it was a 5-year permit. There was a requirement for a wildlife habitat evaluation, which Emily Stockman did in 2019. And she had some recommendations for conditions that never made it into the order of conditions. So I think that we might want to look at whether we want to incorporate those conditions into a future permit. But the other issue was that after that permit was issued, a memorandum of understanding was developed between LWAC and the Conservation Commission that involved kind of the procedure for the water lowering and the notification to the commission about it. And it looks like we have not been getting notified as required by the memorandum of understanding ever, as far as I'm aware. And I asked Penny Jakes if she recalled being notified, and she did not. And she had asked about it. And then I discovered that it doesn't look like that memorandum of understanding was ever signed. So maybe there is no memorandum of understanding. So I think we need to kind of, it seems like somebody dropped the ball in 2021 or 2020. And we kind of need to pick that ball up and try to resolve these issues at the next meeting, hopefully. Okay, so that's what that's all about. That's why I sent you all that stuff.
Okay.
So please take a look at it. And Mary, did you say there was one more issue? We did talk about the Pine Street. Was there more to it?
No.
No. Okay. All right, I think we have to do some site visits. I have 2 site visits that I would like to schedule for this Sunday at noon. Are people available?
I am not. I am gone from Saturday till the following Saturday, the 6th.
Okay. How about you, Beth?
Yeah, I'm available. Could we do it either earlier or later? So it's not sort of like right in the middle of the
Yeah.
day?
Yeah, we could do it. What time you want to do? 10?
Yeah. That works
Only
for me.
thing I have to, one is for a notice of intent down by the lake for a house demolition and rebuild. And then one is for a new garage being built on Leverett Road. Only thing I have to say is that I might have COVID. I might get COVID.
Okay, I just had it.
I might have COVID in the next 24 hours. My daughter just got diagnosed with COVID. She's been jettisoned from the house and is homeless somewhere out there in the world with her boyfriend. But it's his job to take care of her right now. But hopefully I don't have COVID. But if I am sick, I won't be there.
Okay.
Promise you, I won't.
Yeah. Well, I hope you're not sick because it's not fun. It's not a good
Not
time.
fun. Well, my daughter is pretty
Not
sick
fun.
right now. It's really,
Mhm.
I wish she could be here so I could take care of her, but I don't want to get sick. So
Right.
her boyfriend's
Yeah.
got COVID. He gets to do it.
Okay.
Okay, I think we're done. So,
The
next
tree
time-
at, the tree at the lake there, the,
the tree removal.
not that I keep bringing that up or anything. But
What you mean? Oh,
we
you're
never
talking-
decided what, did we?
North Beach.
Yeah, North Beach, we said it shouldn't be removed, but I don't know if we ever talked about it and did anything.
We did not, we talked about it, and at the site visit and said that we thought an arborist needed to evaluate it.
Yeah.
And I communicated that to Donna West. Email,
You sent that to Donna? Oh, okay.
and I did not get a response. I'm pretty sure I did. I will double check after, but I'm quite sure I
Okay.
sent an email to her. But I will, since I haven't heard back from her, I will send out another tickler about that.
Okay.
Okay. A motion to, is 9:41. Somebody have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
David,
Aye.
I, Harrington,
Aye.
Aye.
Wilson.
Hi.
Okay, thank you. Have a good trip.
Thanks.
Robin.
And
I'm like so excited. I'm seeing my first grandchild for the first time.
Ooh, that's
Turns
Congratulations.
2 weeks old tomorrow, and I'll see him this weekend.
Oh, that's
Yay.
wonderful. Yay.
Fun times are coming.
what's his name?
Hiroki, or Hiro for short.
Oh, cute.
Well, enjoy. Congratulations, Mazel Tov.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Bye.